Good afternoon, Trent Knoop. How are you doing over there?
Good, man. You ready for some late night basketball coming up soon?
I am. I thought the late night basketball stuff was really gonna be a struggle for me during the tournament here, but I haven't had a trouble with it. I've been able to stay up, and good to see you, Lydia. Welcome to the comments. I haven't had a problem staying up, but Trent, it's weird to me because you being a guy who like lives at the alley. You're a bowling guy. I picture like alcohol and cigarettes and late night bowling. Like that's to me seems like that your life is after hours. But you once 9 o'clock hits, it's like you turn into a pumpkin.
Dude, when 10 o'clock hits and I'm not asleep, there's usually an issue. And I can tell you this, that first game when Michigan played UC San Diego, that 10, I think they tipped like at 10:15. I was done with my article like at 12:30 and I slammed my laptop down and went straight to bed. Like I can't. This is just too late. It's way too late for me.
Trent has a lot of issues with staying up late. He doesn't like the Michigan night games either. I know a lot of fans are big into that, but Trent, he's not a night owl. He's a guy who's responsible, needs to get to bed at an early time. Trent, we could spend all afternoon talking about your personal life habits, but we need to talk a little bit of sports here. Since the last show we did last week on Wednesday, good to see you, Tyler, Bobby, Dwayne, welcome. Since the show we did last week, Michigan has played now 2 games in the tournament. Look, man, I think that heading into this tournament, there were a lot of people looking at Michigan and thinking, the Big Ten tournament looked good. They obviously put together a string of wins there, but there were still some concerns about this team. They lose 4 of the last 6 in the regular season. Obviously, they struggled against Michigan State, but this has been an incredible stretch, man. When you look at it, they've won 5 straight now. They beat Purdue. They beat Maryland, Wisconsin. I mean, you look at Purdue and Maryland, especially Maryland, like these are teams that people are viewing potentially can make a Final Four run. Michigan was able to knock them off. Then they get into the tournament, the NCAA tournament. They knock off number 12, UC San Diego, and then number 4, Texas A&M. So, again, prior to tournament play, the conference tournament, and then getting into the NCAA tournament, we had a lot of concerns about this team, the way they finished the regular season. There were questions about, man, they're sloppy with the ball. The fundamentals just aren't great. Now that you've seen them knock off 5 straight wins here, you're going up against number 1 Auburn this week. What are your thoughts overall about the Michigan Wolverines and I guess how capable they are of getting past number 1 Auburn and making an even deeper run in the tournament?
Yeah, I think Michigan has the talent to literally beat anybody, like even Duke. I mean, Michigan you have 2 7-footers, Danny Wolf and Vlad Golden. They're both elite at what they do. Michigan, they have the guards that can win too. Look what Roddy Gale went and done against Texas A&M, a career high. LJ Kaysen coming off the bench as a true freshman. Michigan's biggest problem though is turning the basketball over. And they are literally one of the worst teams in all of college basketball, all like 400 teams in college basketball of turning the basketball over. And now that you're in the Sweet 16, every team that you face here on out, starting with Auburn, they're elite teams. And Auburn's got 5 really good starters. They have a potential national player of the year. Like you got to take care of the basketball. And that's been Michigan's Achilles heel all season long. But if they can do that, you get Trey Donaldson playing well, Namari Burnett. Hopefully he plays better than what he did last game. I do think Michigan can win the game. And if they can beat Auburn, you're going to be feeling pretty good about their showing their chances after that.
Yeah, I don't think there's any question about it. Bobby says if they can keep it to 9 turnovers or less going forward, they can beat anybody. I think that's where they were at against Texas A&M. I know that the turnover issue didn't get out of control. We saw it against UC San Diego, right? Like I remember watching that game right from the jump. I was like, Michigan is just, they're way bigger than these guys. And if they take care of the ball and they do what they need to do, Michigan's going to get out of here with a convincing victory. It looked like that might happen. And then once again, those issues, the turnover issues allowed UC San Diego to get back into that game and make it closer than it needed to be. But yeah, I think when you look at this Michigan team, obviously the turnovers, that's something, and it can happen in any game, right? And you're now in a one and done season where if you lose, you're going home. And so you can't afford to have those mistakes. But when I look at what they've done over the last 5 games, and I look at just the weapons that Michigan has, I know that Auburn has some talent. I know that they play well on both ends of the ball. Trent, you mentioned, some of the things that they're really strong at, but honestly, I think anytime you have 2 7-footers who are like legit contributors, who are guys that are on the floor, not just like a big guy sitting in the bench, that's going to give you a chance. And then if you can get strong play from the guards, which we have seen with this team now, Roddy Gale Jr. obviously had the big performance against Texas A&M. Trey Donaldson has come on in tournament play so far. He has been strong. And I think the combination of strong guard play along with 2 7-footers who are big time contributors, to me, Michigan can beat anybody in the country. And Vlad Golden, like, I love the fact that he's more of a traditional, center, 7-footer in the middle, just eating up space, working the block, doing what he needs to do down low. But then you've got Danny Wolf, who's like this X factor who can take the ball down the court, great passer, inside, outside type guy. I just think that that's extremely difficult to have to deal with if you're the opposing team. How do we guard this guy? Who do we put on this guy? And so, from when you watch Michigan all season long and you look at all these issues that they have, you're like, man, I don't know how far they can get in the tournament. But when you look at it, I guess, from like the opposition standpoint, you're looking at Vlad Golden, 7-footer, Danny Wolf, 7-footer who can bring the ball up the court. You're looking at strong play from the guards, and you're also getting good contribution from the bench as well. LJ Case and Will Cheddar, guys like that who are putting in good minutes, good time on the court. I just think that overall, this Michigan team, to your point, Trent, they look like a group that can beat anybody in the country. It's going to be really interesting to see it. It is a late tip on Friday against number 1 Auburn. That one's going to be down in Atlanta. I believe it's a 9:39 tip on CBS. But that's going to be interesting to see, man. I agree. If they can knock off number 1 Auburn, then you're looking at the Elite Eight and a potential rematch again with Michigan State, which, by the way, can we revisit that? Because on Wednesday, Trent made a bold statement about Michigan, the tournament, Michigan State, and like people were trying to throw him off the show. Trent said before the tournament even kicked off, he said he would prefer Michigan to lose in the first round of the tournament as opposed to making it to the Elite Eight and potentially losing to Michigan State in the Elite Eight. Trent, as we sit here now, Michigan in the Sweet 16, they have the chance to go to the Elite Eight, potentially play Michigan State. Do you stand by that statement, or do you retract and apologize for what you said?
I mean, I was going to say, does anybody have a clipping of that? Because I don't remember saying that, but I realize you can go back to YouTube or wherever and probably find something.
Well, I wouldn't recommend it. Last Wednesday's show sucked. I don't know if this show is going to be any better. You don't got to go back and watch last Wednesday's shows. We were working out a lot of kinks, a lot of rust.
If that's the case, I never said it. I never mentioned that or anything. Obviously, if I would have said that, though, like, yeah, that's just being stupid. Like, you want Michigan to go as far as possible, and if it's an Elite Eight matchup against Michigan State, then so be it. But yeah, you want Michigan, especially under year 1 of Dusty May, you want to see Michigan go as far as it possibly can.
Yeah, there's no question about it. Dwayne Jones from the Facebook page, good to see you. He says, Bruce Pearl is like Coach Cal at Arkansas, great recruiter, but not a great actual coach. Yeah, I know Pearl's been around for a long time. I mean, he's kind of a loudmouth guy. He's a big personality. I'd be lying if I said I followed too much about Bruce Pearl. But Trent, what do you think about Dwayne's assessment here of who Bruce Pearl is? A guy that can recruit really well, but not a good actual in-game coach.
I don't really disagree with it. I'm like you. I don't know the ins and outs of Bruce Pearl as a coach, but I feel like I know he was a longtime Tennessee coach, and they never recruited as well as what Coach Cal did at Kentucky or even Memphis when he was there. I think Pearl's probably a better X's and O's coach than what Cal is because he doesn't have the same talent that Cal does. I think Coach Cal recruits at a all-time level, especially when he was at Kentucky, and he's probably going to do the same thing in Arkansas because of who he is now. So I would have to give that edge to Pearl just because I don't think he had the same amount of talent that Cal did.
Yeah, that's a good point. And look, this has been a big conversation among Michigan and Michigan State faithful here. I do want to get your reaction to this because Trent, the possibility, just from an entertainment level standpoint, the possibility of Michigan playing Michigan State in the Elite Eight of the NCAA tournament, given how this rivalry has been traditionally, and then obviously the way things played out in East Lansing there to close out the season, I'm all for it. I say bring it on. But there's a lot of people who are concerned about the fact that, and it's a real concern, Michigan State has pounded Michigan during the last 2 meetings. And so Bobby from the Facebook page, he says, Sparty beat Michigan convincingly both times. that'll hard to beat them 3 times in a row will be a good thing. Michigan is a different team in the tourney, it seems. Disagree about Pearl. He's a good coach. He was at Tennessee where I live. So, okay, we'll take the Pearl stuff out of it. How much do you give credence to the fact that, yeah, it is hard to beat a team 3 times in a row, and this Michigan team seems like they're playing at a completely different level than what we saw from them in East Lansing against the Spartans?
Yeah, I mean, I've always kind of believed in that saying. Like, if you lose to a team twice in the regular season, it's going to be really difficult to lose to them 3 times. I mean, I would think Michigan's going to have all the mental edge in the world to think, okay, we have Michigan State. We've gotten blasted by them twice in a row. Like, we're in the Elite Eight. This is the time to go out there and beat them. And obviously, Tom Izzo is going to have his team coached up and ready to go as well. They're obviously a good team. But man, if you lose to that team 3 times in a row, like, that's going to be rough. I would think that those Michigan players and Dusty May, they're going to take any bulletin board material possible and give it their best effort in the Elite Eight if that's the matchup.
See, I don't think look, I wouldn't be surprised if Michigan gets to the Elite Eight, past number 1 Auburn. Incredible feat, right? And then making it to the Elite Eight in Dusty May's first year. I think that Michigan fans, by and large, are going to consider that season a success. In fact, I think they already look at the season and they feel like Michigan's playing with house money at this point. Like, you have to consider this season a success. But if Michigan does advance to the Elite Eight and they do happen to play Michigan State, if they lose that game, like, I don't think there's any shame in that, right? I think 3 losses to Michigan State, you could sit back, and it might be difficult to say, but you could sit back and say, look, Michigan State just had a better basketball team than Michigan had this year. Like, I don't think there's any shame in saying that, but I think that all of the pressure is going to be on Tom Izzo and Michigan State if that happens. If the Wolverines get past Auburn and Michigan State advances to the Elite Eight, it's sort of like, well, how we talked about the college football playoff, right? Like, yeah, Michigan State, you may have beaten Michigan 2 times in the regular season, but if Michigan meets you in the Elite Eight, beats you and advances to the Final Four, like, that's all people are going to care about. That's all they're going to talk about. And that's going to be the narrative of the season. And so I think for Michigan State to lose that game would be devastating for their fan base, for their team, for their head coach. I think for Michigan to potentially lose that game, would it suck? Yeah, absolutely. But I don't think it's going to carry near the type of negative consequences that you would see in East Lansing. Do you think that's a fair assessment, that assuming we get that rematch, that all the pressure is on Sparty for those reasons?
So obviously I live in Ohio. I know that Michigan State, I definitely believe that Michigan State's Michigan's biggest rival in basketball. Like, that rivalry is huge. To me, like, I guess I'm comparing it to Michigan, Ohio State. Like, if you in football, if Michigan loses to Ohio State in the regular season, say they meet up in the conference and you lose to them, you lose to Ohio State twice in football. Like, that's going to be pretty bad. Like, your fan bases, they're going to, it's going to be rough. I mean, in a way, I feel like it's going to be the same thing for basketball. Like, you got your Sparties just going off and on on social media about Michigan State beating Michigan 3 times in a row. I don't think it would be fun for Michigan fans if they lost Michigan State 3 times.
Yeah, no, it would suck. I mean, it would suck. You don't want to lose to your in-state rival 3 times in one season. But again, like, I think you look at that Michigan State team and, you lose 3 times in a row. I don't think there's any shame in saying, like, look, we won the Big Ten tournament, went to the Sweet 16, just could not beat Michigan State. They were a better team. And then you move on and you look to get better. I think, again, it would suck, but I don't think it would be like devastating to the Michigan fan base. I think on the flip side, if you're a Spartan faithful and you've been watching this team and sort of what happened with Michigan during the regular season, the ultimate goal is to win a national championship. Like, that's what you want to do. And if Michigan was the reason why Michigan State was booted out of the NCAA tournament, I think that would be a very tough pill to swallow, particularly given how successful they were against the Wolverines in the regular season. It's not like these games came down to the wire. No. Michigan was dominating the Wolverines. And so to get into tournament play and stare at the potential of losing that game, I think that's going to be a tough pill to swallow. And Bobby from the Facebook page, he follows that up with, Michigan is definitely playing with house money. It's been an incredible season. He says this team almost caused him to start smoking again. Bobby, don't do that. Listen, man, you got to take care of your body here. I don't know how old you are, but I am now 41 years old. And if there's one thing I have learned the hard way, Trent, over the last, year or so, you got to take care of your body. Your mind, your body. Bobby, please. don't start smoking again. But he says 14-4 in games decided by 4 points or less. Yeah, man. I mean, for the Michigan side of things, it has been close. It has been sort of a roller coaster thing, and things have been tighter than they need to be. And that goes back to a lot of those fundamental issues, struggling with rebounding and turning the ball over. That has led to plenty of games being closer than they needed to be. But that's who this Michigan team is. And we might not like it. We might not enjoy it, but they seem to be finding ways to win more often than not, in spite of those issues. You just hope that isn't like, if they get on the court against Auburn and they turn the ball over 17 times and lose the game, like, that is going to suck. Like, just please don't let that be the reason you lose a basketball game. And if they can get that cleaned up, or at least limit it, and get what they need out of Vlad Golden, Danny Wolf, and get strong play from, Trey Donaldson, Roddy Gay, whoever it's going to be from the guards. They need the guards to step up. But if they can do that, I think Michigan has a shot to get it done. So that game, again, is going to be on Friday. It's at 9:39 p.m. on CBS against number 1 Auburn, man. I'm excited, dude. I love the fact that Michigan is still playing in the tournament. I wasn't quite sure they were going to make it this far, but having the Wolverines be a part of it has obviously piqued the interest. Let's stick with basketball for one other piece of news that dropped this week. On Monday, we got news that freshman Justin Pippen had entered the portal, or was intending to enter the portal. I'm not actually sure if he's in the portal yet, so I don't want to overstep. But the report, I think, came from 247 Sports, maybe, that he was planning on entering the portal. And then, this has obviously been a period of, you look on social media, there's a lot of guys that are entering the portal around college basketball while the NCAA tournament is going on. There was talk about, here you are, Michigan, you're preparing for the Sweet 16, and you've got a guy entering the portal. Trent, when you look at just the transfer portal overall, how about this? Before we get to that, surprised to see Justin Pippen in the portal, or was that something that you expected?
No, I was shocked by it. I know that he probably hasn't received the minutes that he had hoped for, but he still played in, I think, 26 or 28 games for Michigan this season. He only averaged, I think, 6 minutes a game, but he was still a little bit in the rotation. Obviously, though, LJ Kaysen, his emergence might have caused some issues there. Michigan also has 5-star Trey McKinney coming in next season, who's also a guard. So maybe Pippen just kind of saw the writing on the wall that he wasn't going to become a starter at Michigan. You have Trey Donaldson back next season. And I mean, you can't overly fault these kids. The window opens up at a terrible time. And Justin Pippen, if that's what he thought his best interest was, to enter the portal, go find a new team as soon as possible. Like, you can't fault him for entering the portal. He's probably not going to play anyway. So it is what it is in that situation.
Yeah, I mean, he was getting some minutes here and there down the stretch, but you're right. The emergence of LJ Kaysen, I think, I don't know, man. Like, you can cycle through a lot of guards, and I'm not sure what the particular reason is. Obviously, he didn't think it was a good fit or wanted to explore his options elsewhere. I just think it sucks that it's one of those things as a head coach you got to deal with while you're still in the tournament, while you're still trying to focus on achieving your goals for that particular season. And Tom Izzo, I get that he coaches Michigan State, but he came out this week and gave a very passionate response about how he felt about the transfer portal, and he was pounding on the table, and he was like, I'm going to focus on my guys right now, the guys that I have here. I don't care about any of that outside stuff, and if it ends up costing me down the road, it costs me down the road. But right now I'm locked into the tournament and wanting to make a run for my guys. And I think that's the way it should be, man. I don't understand why the NCAA, why they're allowing the portal window to open at this point in the season. It seems very strange. And I saw people trying to compare it to the NFL, what if you were in the midst of an NFL playoff run and all of a sudden, free agency is possible and guys can just enter and they can announce. And it's like, how are you supposed to deal with all the things you got to deal with as a team, excuse me, and as a head coach, along with trying to hold on to your guys or trying to manage different guys entering the portal, or even on the flip side, who's becoming available? Which guys should I be targeting while you're trying to make a run in the NCAA tournament? It seems absolutely crazy. And I think that, do you think it's safe to assume that we are in the final days of the transfer portal being highly inconvenient in terms of when the window's open and the window's closed? Are they switching it down to a single window in college football, or is it going to still be two windows, a fall, or I'm sorry, a spring and a winter? Isn't there talk about limiting it to one window?
Yeah, I know there was definitely talk. I honestly don't know if they came to a decision on that yet or not, but I know there were a lot of talk about just having, I believe, a spring window or I don't know, one or the other. There's either going to be a winter or a spring. But like it was the same thing for football, right? You have the college football playoff open or start, and then you had the transfer portal window open right then and there. And then I think it was SMU's backup quarterback. He entered the portal because, or no, it was Penn State. Their backup quarterback entered the portal, and he actually played. Like they would put him in the game as a running quarterback, and he would play. But he had to make the best decision for him because he knew he wasn't going to start for Penn State, and he ended up leaving to go somewhere else. It's wild. Like yesterday, Dusty May was talking on his radio show. He said he has two assistant coaches focusing on scouting Auburn. He has two assistant coaches looking at the transfer portal, and then he's trying to divvy up his time between retaining his own roster, looking at the transfer portal, and scouting Auburn. Like these teams that are still playing in the Sweet 16, you're literally handicapping them of what they can do because you're opening up the portal right now, and it's crazy to me.
Yeah, and so I think that for sure we're gonna see some sort of change because I think coaches are just fed. Calipari same way. Like he was talking about the transfer portal, and I think he found out when he was at a press conference. One of the reporters was like, he asked a reporter, he's like, "When is it open?" And the guy was like, "Monday," and he's like, "Monday." So like, it's catching all of these guys. If you're not in the tournament, I mean, if let's say you're the head coach at Ohio State, for that basketball program, it doesn't affect you because you haven't been playing basketball for a long time. But for the actual good teams that are out there who are still in the tournament, like it's a tough thing to have to deal with. So I would assume that at some point we're going to see some change there. But dude, the transfer portal is such a weird thing because it's like a love-hate thing that I have with it. I saw a graphic that came out and I shared it on the Facebook page earlier today. But when you look at Michigan's roster, like their top 8 guys who are getting the most minutes, there's one guy who was a Michigan recruit. Everybody else was a transfer portal guy. And so, I mean, I'm wondering at this point, and I think it was, who was it? Was it Pitino that talked about it when he was talking about going into the offseason? He's like, I'm not even looking to recruit anybody right now. He's like, I'm losing veteran guys. I need to go into the portal. I need guys who've got experience who can play. And you look at what Dusty May has done. I mean, with Danny Wolf, Vlad Gold, Trey Donaldson, go down the list, man. A majority of his guys, the vast majority of the contributors are transfer portal guys. I'm wondering, like, is the need to recruit in college basketball even that strong anymore? Or is it really just, I mean, dude, look at all the guys that are entering the portal. Like if you're a coach at a great program, you can continue to build your roster year after year with top flight guys who are entering the portal looking for a better opportunity somewhere else. And a lot of times they're coming from those lower level programs. They put together 1 or 2 good seasons. And now, they're entering themselves into this sort of like, it's almost like a draft pick or something like that, like a lottery. So like, how much value do you still place on recruiting in basketball versus, hey, man, I can build a national championship team right out of the portal. I don't need to put so much emphasis on recruiting.
Yeah, I don't think in basketball, I don't think you have to. Like if that was Pitino who said that, I think he's right. Like I saw a number yesterday, 1,000 players have entered the portal already. 1,000 college basketball players have entered the portal. Think about that. So you have all those players in the portal, and there's going to be more and more that enter the portal, especially from teams that are still playing. So, I mean, if you're like Michigan, you can land a 5-star player like Trey McKinney. You're obviously not going to pass that up. But no, Dusty May could literally go to the portal, find 5 or 6 players, bring them into next year's team, and possibly not skip a beat because you can go find elite low-end talent or talent that played on low-end teams and fill them in. It's you plug them and play them. Like that's all. It's what you can do. And yeah, no, I agree with you. I don't think you have to focus on recruiting anymore for basketball.
Well, yeah, and I mean, just to show you, or at least explain how stark the difference is, those graphics that I talked about earlier, there was one that came out and it showed the Sweet 16 teams for the 2019. This was the 2018-2019 season. And when you look at Michigan's roster, out of the guys, the top 8, right, the guys who got by minutes per game, the top 8 players, Michigan had one guy out of their top 8 who came from another program. That was Charles Matthews, came from Kentucky. Every other guy was a Michigan recruit. And so you're talking about 1 out of 8 back in 2019 versus, let's go and see what it looks like here. Complete opposite. You're 7 of 8 now in 2025 as far as Michigan's roster. So yeah, I think when you look at how important is recruiting, well, when you look at how well Michigan's done on the recruiting trail and some of the guys that they're bringing in next year, I think it's still important. But man, I do think it's getting to the point where a lot of these upper tier programs are just going to be looking at the transfer portal, and they're not going to want to, they don't want to develop guys for year after year after year. If you can go into the portal and you can get an experienced guy who's averaging 17 points a game somewhere else, and you can bring him into your program, I think we've seen with Michigan now that can lead to success. And I would expect Dusty May to continue doing that. And I saw somebody in the comments here, it's Andrew Richards. He thinks there's a chance Danny Wolf comes back. He says Wolf might be back. I know May said he expects him to be an NBA player, but $2.5 million in NIL and a profit share would be possible to match that in the mid-20 draft grade. I mean, look, man, it's certainly possible that I think that you can hang on to these guys more with NIL, but I don't know. Maybe I'm off base on this trend. I view it as more of being a thing that's going to impact football more than I do basketball. Like I think Danny Wolf's as good as gone.
Hunter Dickinson.
Well, there's that, right? But I don't think that's the thing. I don't think Hunter Dickinson has a great future in the NBA. To me, like his role is kind of a role that we're seeing phased out of the NBA of the traditional, big man role. And I don't view Danny Wolf that way at all. Like I talked about it earlier in the show. You're talking about a 7-footer who can bring the ball up the court. I mean, he can run point guard, for God's sakes. He can play down low. He can play outside of getting careless with the ball sometimes. Like, I don't think there is much of a weakness in Danny Wolf's game. And I said this to you in the text, like, I actually think Danny Wolf's going to be a better pro player than he is college basketball player, because I think in college basketball, just watch the way they compete defensively. Like, you got guys up in your shit all the time, making it complicated. I don't think you see that same type of defensive tenacity at the next level in the NBA. And so I think all that means for a guy like Danny Wolf is he's going to be able to play his game at an even higher level. I'll ask you, Trent, do you think that NIL can keep some of these guys in Ann Arbor? Do you think a guy like Danny Wolf might entertain $2.5 million to stay at Michigan versus going to the league as a 7-footer who's dynamic and can make some things happen?
Can it keep players? Yes, absolutely. The Danny Wolf in particular, I don't know. I know earlier in the year he was a projected potential lottery pick, but I know his draft stock has fallen a little bit. Like he's down into like the 20s now that I see projections. Like, I don't know. Like if you can offer Danny Wolf X amount of money where it can match what he would get drafted at, like you could argue that, hey, you come back to Michigan one more year, you could be in the lottery the following year and make a lot more money. So maybe like if you can pay him what a 21st overall draft pick would get paid, possibly, like it's definitely possible, right? And then he plays one more year at Michigan and he maybe gets drafted 13th the following year. I don't know. It's possible. But for Dusty May saying that he expects Danny Wolf to be in the NBA, there's clearly been talk there. And I'm guessing that those two were like, hey, after the season, you're gone, you're off to the NBA.
Yeah, I mean, that seems far more likely. And to be honest, I'm not going to pretend that I know, but I just don't know that the NIL funding is there for basketball the way that it is for football, at least in Ann Arbor. I think for other programs, they probably have access to packages that they can put together for their top players on the basketball roster to try to keep them in place. But I don't know. Does Michigan have the ability to float $2.1 million to a guy in the basketball program? I'm not sure. I mean, I wouldn't question it on the football end of things. I mean, if they had a guy who could go in the draft, they wanted to keep him in Ann Arbor, I wouldn't question whether or not the football program could pull it off. But I don't know if the basketball program is there yet. I think Dusty Mays, he's talked about NIL here and there. And, a lot of coaches know. We've seen it with Kevin Willard with Maryland, right? I mean, he came out flat out during the tournament and said, like, look, I need more resources. I need more NIL. I need this. I need that. And so these coaches are very upfront that it's taking multiple things now to build a championship roster. And does Michigan have the ability to float $2.1 million to a guy like Danny Wolf? Maybe. I just don't see it happening. Man, we got off on
I wouldn't bank on it happening.
No, not at all. Troy Flynn from the Facebook page, he says for Pippen to do this during the tournament is a distraction to the team and definitely makes you question his concussion and missing games. I don't know. I'm not going to question, any sort of injury that he was going through. But, I guess how much stock do you put into that? Like, knocking a guy or feeling like it's a negative thing for somebody on the team to enter the portal when it's a guy, if we're talking like If it's Trey Donaldson, you're starting point
Yeah.
guard, then I think it's an issue. If it's Vlad Golden or Danny Wolf entering the transfer portal, then I think it's an issue. But how much of an issue is it for a true freshman who plays sporadically to enter the portal, even in the midst of a tournament run?
I mean, for Justin Pippen, like you said, if it was Trey Donaldson, if it were Roddy Gale, even LJ Kaysen,
yeah.
Then it's a distraction. But I mean, I would say the transfer portal is a distraction. Like, it's not any particular player. It's the NCAA's problem for letting it open when it does. Like, open it up after the tournament is over. So these players who are on teams that are still playing, they don't have to feel like they need to opt in right now. Like, if you're Justin Pippen, as I said earlier, the writing is on the wall. You're probably not going to get much more playing time. He's clearly probably wants to start. It's not going to happen in Michigan, even as early as next season. So if you're him, you enter in now, you go get your feelers, who's interested in you, you get into the best situation right now. I mean, I don't knock Justin Pippen for entering. Again, it is a bigger issue because of the NCAA when they open up the transfer portal. It has nothing to do with these players.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I mean, with the way the window is, it puts these players in a tough spot. Like, I'm sure Justin Pippen would have preferred not to do this during a tournament run, but you're pretty much at the mercy of the NCAA and when the window's open. And if you're a player, like, as soon as guys enter the portal, other teams are looking at them thinking, is this guy going to be, somebody that we need or want on our roster? And so I think if you're a guy like Pippen, the longer you delay that, you might cost yourself an opportunity elsewhere for a team that's on the hunt. And so I don't think you can afford to delay it if you intend to enter the portal. And to Trent's point, I mean, that's more of an NCAA issue than it is a Justin Pippen issue. He follows it up with saying Trey Donaldson playing his former team in Auburn. That should be interesting. I mean, yeah, that's one of the cool storylines that comes with the transfer portal, right? Is you're going to see Trey Donaldson taking on his former team, number 1 Auburn. Like, I would imagine Trey Donaldson's going to be playing with a little bit of fire on Friday.
Oh yeah, he's going to want to prove, like, hey, why did you guys let me go? Like, you should have kept me. Like, I could be your starting point guard now, but instead I'm the starting point guard at Michigan, and I'm going to show you, what I'm capable of. Like, it's going to be in the back of his mind, and he's going to be playing with a chip on his shoulder.
Exactly. And we got Jared Johnson here in the comments. He says, "Oh, I see why you guys are ignoring my text now, messing around in your grandma's basement again. Real cool." I couldn't figure out why my phone was ringing off the hook. I would have thought Jared, since he's a part of our group now, would understand Wednesdays at noon, Trent and Chris are doing their live show. He clearly does. I mean, dude, he's a part of the team and he doesn't even watch the show. He wasn't even in here to begin the show.
And Jared, to be fair, I would be ignoring your text either way. So, like, it doesn't really matter.
Oh, that's a little bit of insight into how things work among the team here. Let's keep going down here before we switch off into football. Scott Patton, good to see you as well. Ralph Collins is on his 16. Oh yeah. Okay. So Frankie Collins. I mean, yeah, Frankie Collins, he's now on his 6th team. Some guys just can't settle. Yeah, Frankie Collins has traveled. Started off at Michigan, went to Arizona State. Then he's at TCU, and now he's back in the transfer portal looking for a new home. I do think that is one of the consequences of the portal as well, is that, you look at what happened to Cade McNamara, right? Starts off at Michigan, transfers to I don't even know where the hell he's at now. I think he went back to high school. I think he transferred back to high school. Is that possible? But some of these guys get caught up in like this transfer portal system where, like, it's not working out for me here, let me enter the portal. I'm going to go here. Oh, it's not working out for me there, let me go over here. And I think that it can be detrimental to your career rather than just sticking it out and, using Justin Pippen as an example. Again, I don't know what his situation is, there's a lot of things that could go into deciding that you want to transfer other than just wanting more playing time. But for some of these guys, I think that, ego plays a role, and you think that you should be doing a certain thing. And when you're not, like, the first instinct is to bail. And every single time, transfer portal is right there. New opportunity, new beginnings are right there. And some guys seem to fall in love with that process. So yeah, Frankie Collins appears to be one of those guys. He's on the move again. I don't know. Maybe Dusty May's out there. He's going to be looking for a veteran, well-traveled point guard in the portal, and Frankie Collins can make his way back on home to Ann Arbor. Trent, I'm guessing you would support that.
Yeah, I think that ship's probably sailed, to be honest with you. I know he got injured this year at TCU. I think he tore his ACL.
He did. I don't know if it was an ACL, but I know he did get injured. I think, would he play like 6 or 12 games? It wasn't much.
Yeah, no, it wasn't much. And he got injured essentially right away. and then was out the rest of the year. But like, why transfer? I don't know, unless they filled a spot and like, hey man, you're not playing here. I don't know.
Yeah, but so, we went off for about, I don't know, 15, 20 minutes there just talking about the transfer portal. It just goes to show that it's a crazy world, and I think coaches are trying to navigate it as well as they possibly can. But going back to what we were originally talking about, like, for however you feel about the transfer portal, and when you look at Michigan's roster this year, and when you look at the rosters of all the other teams that are currently in the Sweet 16 outside of Michigan State and Purdue, who are pretty much all Michigan State and Purdue guys, the other teams, and yeah, coaching movement has a lot to do it, but a lot of these teams are built on transfer portal guys. Again, 7 of Michigan's top 8 contributors came out of the transfer portal, and I think that that's a formula that Dusty is going to look to continue next year and in the years beyond. Trent, is there anything you want to say about basketball before we switch on over to a little bit of football news?
Chris, it's funny, before we hopped on, it's like, hey, this might be a half-hour show, like whatever it is, half hour, 45 minutes. Here we are, 36 minutes in, and all we've talked about is basketball.
I'm just blabbering away about different things. Sometimes I black out and lose consciousness and not even sure of what I'm talking about. Let's make the transition to Matt Kirby. I forgot Matt Kirby's like president of the Cade McNamara fan club over. He's always making sure that there's no Cade McNamara slander in the chat. He says Cade, the Big Ten champion QB. Yeah, I mean, he always gets to wear that title if nothing else. Let's move into football a little bit. And I don't want to look, there's not a lot of big breaking news happening with football. We're in spring. We're kind of, it's a wait and see period. Guys are going through practice right now. You want to see who's going to emerge in spring. And then obviously that's going to culminate in the spring game later on in April. But really, man, like, we're not going to find out all that much about this team until we get into fall camp and see what some of these battles look like. But there was a big story surrounding the football program only because the guy was a part of it. It popped off over the last week. I feel like we at least have to touch on it a little bit. I don't want to spend too much time on it, but Matt Weiss, former coordinator with the Michigan football program, has, what is it? Is it 2024? I don't want to get the number. I don't want to get sued or anything, but a lot of indictments. Are you looking it up?
Yeah, I'm looking it up.
Yeah, let's just get this one accurate because I don't want to shoot from the hip on this one.
Yeah. 24
counts.
Yeah, total.
CJ showing up late. So yeah, I mean, it was weird, man. In the 2022 season, Matt Weiss is with the team. They lose to TCU. I think it was in the early offseason we found out that Matt Weiss had been suspended from the team initially, and then not long thereafter, it was announced that Matt Weiss was no longer with the program. And there was a lot of confusion, I think, when that first happened. We weren't really sure what was going on, and then something sort of leaked out about it had something to do with computer crimes. And then it became like this huge mystery. And then obviously the thing with Connor Stallions popped off, and there were people that were trying to draw like a link between what Matt Weiss was doing and Connor Stallions. And maybe Weiss was a part of that network, right? And he was hacking into Ohio State's computer servers, yada, yada, yada. Dude, after hearing what we heard, I almost wish that would have been the case. I almost wish it would have been that he was looking at practice footage and not doing the things that he was doing. And again, I don't want to go too deep into it, but thoughts on Matt Weiss and the computer hacking. And for anybody who didn't hear, apparently he was hacking into the accounts from students around campus. And I think campuses, not just limited to Michigan, I think he was doing it on a broader scale, and basically taking intimate photos and information about these people. And I don't know what the hell he was doing with it. But he's facing some serious consequences. Trent, anything that any thoughts about what you heard come out about Matt Weiss recently?
Yeah, I mean, it's disturbing. It's gross. Like, if everything is true, that what he's being charged for, like, he should be punished to the full extent of the law. And I mean, it's unfortunate, but it's absolutely disturbing if it's all true, what the report was, whatever he has coming, like, should happen.
Let me ask you, I mean, there's a lot of people that are looking at, and I don't follow other programs closely, so I don't really know what's going on with other programs and how many issues they have. I mean, the most I know about is with Georgia and their players speeding and driving drunk. Like, to me, that's that's prevalent. We know that that's an issue down in Athens, but how much of this, I think, do you think is a Michigan issue versus a Matt Weiss issue? Because there have been a string of hires that people are looking at and saying, like, look, man, I don't know if they don't know how to vet people out there in Ann Arbor, but you have the Matt Weiss thing, you have the Connor Stallions thing, you have the Alex Ute. Alex Ute, is that his name? I'm not really sure.
I think Ute.
I don't know if it's Alex, whatever his name was, and you can look that up. We're not going to talk about that. You had the Shemy Schembechler thing where he was hired and then fired like 2 weeks later. Do you think that this is a Michigan issue, or do you think it's just been a string of like, we maybe didn't make the best decisions here with some of these hires? Do you think there's an issue, or do you think Michigan is like, maybe learned its lesson?
Man, no, clearly these coaches, staffers, they got to get vetted more thoroughly than what they are. I mean, even with Weiss, it was going on long before he came to Michigan.
Yeah.
And how there was no trace, no nothing is beyond me. Like, how did it? I don't know. The whole, I don't want to talk about it, but the whole Alex Ute thing. It's there's no excuses. Shemy, like they hire the guy, then it's like it's vetted afterwards, and then he's fired.
Well, that one wasn't. I mean, it was right there on his social media. All you had to do was like do a quick social medias, and even the Connor Stallions thing, right? Like, if you believe Connor Stallions, he got hired by what? Showing up at like a coach's speaking event or whatever, and he ran into Chris Partridge, and he was like, "Hey, I'd really like to work for the program." And Partridge was like, "Okay, well, show up on Monday. We'll find some." Is that how easy it is to get employed by the football program? Because if it is, like, I feel like I've been pursuing things all wrong. Like, I should just show up at Schembechler and say, I love Michigan football. Well, what do you got for me here? And maybe I'm in. Maybe I'm part of the staff.
Yeah, I mean, if you show up to Sharon Moore's office maybe today,
I can tell you what they would have me arrested. They would have me arrested and thrown out of the facility. I would never be able to come back. So maybe it only works for certain people, but yeah, I mean, it's certainly not a laughing matter. And in fact, Matt Weiss is now being sued by two former University of Michigan students. That's according to a story from the Detroit News. I believe they're also suing the university as well. And based on the scope, I think, and how big this was and how long Matt Weiss was doing it, I don't think it's going to end with just, two former students. So that's going to be something to keep your eye. Who the hell is this? Dude, we get the Facebook page, the bigger it gets, there are porn bots and spam bots and all kinds of shit that show up. Like, they show up in the comments and somebody will comment on like a photo or something, and then you'll get a comment under your comment that's like, "Hey, sweetheart, I noticed your photo. I didn't really know how to approach you. Please send me a DM." Are there really people that are falling for this shit? Are there people that fall for it?
Oh, you absolutely know there are people that fall for it. Absolutely.
I mean, look, man, if there is some like
Matt Kirby's one of them. Matt Kirby falls for it.
If she's like half naked and she's got like one friend and there's not much on her Facebook page and she's asking to connect with you, maybe it is Trent. Trent, are you the one that's spamming the followers on the page?
Could be. I'm trying to get more interactions.
Oh, what is it? About 43 minutes before we went off the rails. That's not bad. Troy says he met his wife that way. See, I know CJ's been hit up with some hotties. See, every time CJ comments, there's always somebody trying to get his info and get a DM. So, all right, so we'll move off the Matt Weiss thing. Yeah, I don't know. It's creepy. It's not great. And I think overall, it would be nice for Michigan to put together a long stretch of not having these types of issues. I don't want to make it out to be like it's systemic or, it's a Michigan problem, but even the most maize and blue faithful person out there, you have to look at it and say, like, it hasn't been a great stretch over the last 4 years in terms of hiring some people that probably shouldn't have been with the program.
Well, then you even had what was Greg Scruggs? Was that his name? The defensive line coach.
He was in Ann Arbor for like a night and then out.
Yeah.
And Sharon Moore here, he is trying to like rebuild the staff in the wake of Harbaugh's departure, and he's having to deal with that as well. So yeah, man, it's been a bit of a bumpy ride, and hopefully they've got that figured out. And somebody mentioned it in the comments. Jim Harbaugh's been around for a long time. When you hire a guy like Shemy Schembechler, like there's some history there. You're probably not vetting these guys as closely. Matt Weiss came from Baltimore, worked with John Harbaugh there, so maybe that plays a factor in it, that like you don't feel like you need to vet these guys because you know somebody who knows somebody who knew them. But hopefully Michigan has learned from that, because it sucks. When these things keep popping up, it's like, Why does it keep happening at Michigan? I'm not sure, but they need to get that fixed, and hopefully it's not an issue moving forward. So let's move on from the Matt Weiss thing. Sharon Moore's press conference this week. We met with him on Monday. Not all that surprising. He didn't, nothing groundbreaking is going to come out of these press conferences. All of these guys are trained pretty well. We did get a little bit of insight, though, on some key aspects. And I think, primarily the Rod Moore thing stood out to most people. Rod Moore, of course, missed all of last season with an injury. He's still working and rehabbing, and he is not practicing with the team right now during spring ball. Trent, when you heard that, did that raise any red flags to you? Sharon Moore did say he was confident that Rod Moore would be good to go in the fall, but Sharon Moore was also confident that Will Johnson would be good to go at some point in the season, and that didn't happen. Any concerns about Rod Moore and his injury process, or do you think this is just out of an abundance of caution? We don't need him going through spring ball.
Well, Wink Martindale back in, or I think early March, when he was talking to John Jansen, he made the comment that Rod Moore wasn't running yet, and it was like however long since he got injured last spring. And I thought I kind of had some raised eyebrows on that. Like I thought he was going to be ready to go for spring. So it wasn't all that surprising to me just because he kind of informed us early March that Rod Moore wasn't fully there yet. Concerning a little bit. I mean, you hope that he's going to be ready for week 1. If he doesn't practice at all in the spring, like hopefully he's physically ready to go for that week 1, week 2 showdown against Oklahoma. But I mean, once he's healthy and on the field, I think Rod Moore is going to be one of the top safeties in all of college football. So I think physically he'll be fine. It's just getting ramped back up to playing style, right? Because he hasn't played under Wink Martindale, and even though he was sort of a coach on the field, still you got to get in there and you got to tackle, you got to hit people, you got to run. It'll be interesting to see how it goes if he doesn't participate in spring.
Yeah, no question about it. I mean, I tend to lean on the belief that it's out in abundance of caution because I think that was when he got hurt last year, right? Wasn't it in spring ball? It wasn't fall camp. It was in spring, right?
Spring,
or was it?
Yep, spring.
Yeah. So, I mean, you already saw what can happen there. And there's this line of thought that like, anybody can get injured at any time in any place, right? You can't just like shut down shop and only show up to play during the games. Like you've got to practice, you got to put the pads on, you got to hit. And anytime you do that, there's always going to be a risk of injury. But I think when it comes to Rod Moore in particular, like you saw him suffer that injury during spring last year, that it can happen. And why not just let him continue to recover, get ready for fall camp. And he's a veteran. I mean, if he was a younger guy, you'd be a little bit concerned about maybe missing out on some reps, but he's played a lot of college football, made a lot of big time plays. And so hopefully he's still on that track in recovery. And it seems like everybody seems confident that he's going to be ready to go once the fall rolls around. But, we're not going to know that for a number of months at this point. And then, another thing that we continue to hear throughout these press conferences, there's a couple of guys that are standing out who are true freshmen that I think can make a real play on becoming impact players during the fall. One guy is, where is it at here? Shamari Earls on the defensive side, freshman corner. He's wearing that number 2. I don't think they hand out the number 2 lightly, especially on defense at the University of Michigan anymore. I think the fact that he's wearing that number probably says a lot. Sharon Moore spoke about Shamari Earls on Monday. We heard Wink Martindale speak about him last week. And then the other guy we're hearing on the other side of the ball is wide receiver Andrew Marsh, true freshman wide receiver. Sounds like he's really standing out. He's rocking the number 4. I think he's probably going to play a role in the offense as a true freshman. Trent, when you hear about these two guys and you look at, obviously take Bryce Underwood out of the equation, but when you hear about Shamari Earls and you hear about Andrew Marsh, I mean, are these two guys that you potentially view as impact players in year 1?
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, Shamari Earls, I think he's going to turn out to be a 5-star recruit. Like I'm super high on him. He has the build. He's tall. He kind of looks like Will Johnson. I feel like he has that build, and I think he's going to be physical. I think he could have the same trajectory that Will Johnson had. Maybe not starting right away, but I think by the end of his freshman year, he'll be an impact player, and then he'll be really good next season. And then Andrew Marsh, clearly they need some playmaking at the wide receiver position. And Andrew Marsh, he had all the offers you could possibly want. He's fast. He's 6'1". Like I think that he could play either outside or in the slot if needed. And once again, I don't know that he's going to start right away, but I think you're going to see a lot of Andrew Marsh.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, it's two guys who play a position where, there's some serious competition that's going to take place in the spring and in the fall. And when you look at the defensive side of the ball, Trent, you and I were talking about it. Like defensively, this team looks solid, looks stacked. And now we've heard it from both Sharon Moore and Wink Martindale that this defense is deeper than they were last season, which I think is a scary thing. We talked about this last week where, one of the things that made Michigan incredibly dangerous defensively during the national championship run was the fact that they could cycle out guys and they could replace guys with other guys and there was no drop off. And so everybody stayed fresh and they were just replacing dudes with dudes. And if Michigan can replicate that in 2025, we saw the defense finish on a strong note toward the end of the season, knocking off Ohio State, beating Alabama. There's a lot of confidence on the defensive side of the ball. And sure, yeah, you're losing Mason Graham, you're losing Kenneth Grant, you're losing Will Johnson. You didn't have any of those guys during the game against Alabama, and the defense still showed out. So I like what I'm hearing. And then when you talk about a guy like Shamari Earls, if there is one area, right, where you maybe have a question mark, I think it's at the corner position. And here's Shamari Earls, big body guy wearing the number 2. It seems like he's going to have an opportunity to play significant minutes as a true freshman. Trent, I guess let's talk about that. Let's transition into that because you and I were talking about, areas that we feel good about this team and areas where maybe we view a weakness or there's a concern. Let's start on the offensive side of the ball. What do you think this offensive strength is? What do you think the weakness is as we sit here today in March?
Strength, I think you got to go with the running back. You bring in Justice Hayes from Alabama. He's shown plenty of flashes of what he can do. The dude's build as well. He's quick. Like I think he's going to be a wrecking ball day one. And then Jordan Marshall. I mean, look what he did against Alabama. You go up against Alabama and you run for 100 yards in your first true playing time. Like I think you're going to have a great 1A, 1B there with those two. And don't forget about like Ben Hall. Like he's also shown flashes. I think he'll be a really good number 3 when needed. And then weakness of the offensive unit, it's either offensive line or receiver, but right now I'll have to go with the wide receivers. Just wow. We need somebody to show something. I mean, you got to go back a couple years ago to Samaj Morgan's probably the one who's done it. And it's not like he's done that much either. And that was with JJ McCarthy. I said it last show, but Donovan McCulley, he was IU's leading receiver 2 years ago. He couldn't make the rotation this past year. He's 6'5", but why couldn't he play? So I don't know. I think there's a lot of question marks in that group. We just got to see. We got to see who shows up. I think Andrew Marsh could bring some playmaking to the unit. Who else though? Fred Moore, maybe. Samaj Morgan, maybe. McCulley, maybe. Anthony Simpson, the transfer from UMass, maybe. We just have to see it.
How dare you question a position? Are you aware that Amarian Walker is still in Ann Arbor? I don't understand how you're going to question the wide receivers at this point.
By the way, Amarian Walker is in Ann Arbor and he doesn't have a number.
Well, that's besides the point, Trent. You're getting lost in the weeds here. The details don't matter. Ralph Lewis from the Facebook page, he asks, do you have any notes on the tight end group? I know that you bring back a veteran like Marlon Klein. You've got some guys there. Trent, any thoughts on the tight end group? You're losing Colston Loveland, who, Michigan's leader in receptions, Michigan's leader in yards, Michigan's leader in touchdowns. He did it while injured and not playing every single game and every single rep. Who's the guy that's going to step up? How does the tight end group look this year?
I really like the tight end position. I know that, you lose Loveland, who was obviously the best pass catcher on the team. The guy that I think is really going to step up is Hogan Hansen. I really liked what we saw from him in that Ohio State game. I think he's going to be that more of that pass catcher. Marlon Klein, obviously you can't forget about him. I think they're going to be your 1A, 1B for the tight end. But even guys like Brady Prescorn, like he was highly coveted as a recruit. He's still on the roster. I think he'll provide some minutes. Zach Marshall, another guy who's been on the team for a few years. I think that the tight end position will be completely fine.
Yeah, I mean, once again, Michigan has been solid at tight end for some time, and I think that that's going to continue in 2025. Obviously, Trent, for all the reasons that you said. I think for me, when I look at this offense, you look at the running back room, and you're like, that's a solid room. Like they are legit 3 deep there. They're going to be able to cycle through guys, even if as a running back, you're going to get dinged up throughout the season. Like you're taking a beating as a running back, and I think being able to cycle through guys is going to help keep them fresh. But if you do go down a guy, like Michigan is not going to drop off, at least in that department, and so. So, Justice Haynes, Jordan Marshall, those two guys leading the way, and then Benjamin Hall, in the mix as well. By the way, Jordan Marshall and Justice Haynes are going to be available for today's press conference and player availability. So I think that speaks to how people view that tandem in Schembechler Hall right now. Yeah, I think that's going to be a solid unit. I think it's actually going to be a step up from Trent, is that going too far? Like, we're going to see better production from this year's running back group than we saw last year with Donovan Edwards and Khalil Mullings. Would you go that far?
I think so. Khalil Mullings obviously had a pretty good year. He carried Michigan to several wins, but Donovan Edwards underperformed from what we thought. And I think we'll see a lot more from Justice Hayes and Jordan Marshall from what we saw last year, no doubt.
Yeah. And concern for me, I agree with Troy. Troy says, let me pull it up here. Wrong comment. Damn it. Get out of here, CJ. Troy from the Facebook page. He says, I'm going with the offensive line being the biggest concern on offense. That's kind of where my head is at as well. We talked about that last week on the show, Trent. I talked about the offensive line. I know that Michigan went out and got some guys out of the portal, but we saw last year that they had some issues, Evan Link at the tackle position, getting a lot of pressure on guys like Davis Warren. And, as Michigan cycled through the quarterbacks, and the problem was they didn't have a lot of mobility at the position, not a lot of experience at the position. So you had guys facing a ton of pressure who were largely inexperienced. And as the season went on, the offensive line seemed to find its rhythm. But once again, I think that this is a unit. You get El Hadi back, you get Greg Crippen back at the center position. They've got some guys who have some experience, but offensive line is one of those things where I think it just takes time to gel. I think it just takes time to make things work. You got to see out, the Ferris State transfer. What's his last name? Hader, whatever. How do you say it?
Yeah, Hatter, I think.
So, and you get the guy from Cal Poly. So they're bringing in some experienced guys. And by the way, not trying to diminish the guy from Ferris State. It sounds like he was an absolute dog out there in Big Rapids, and I think Michigan's getting a good one there. But overall, like, that unit has to function cohesively, and I think that just takes reps and takes time. Sharon Moore has talked about that. So offensively, I would say right now for me, it is the offensive line. Maybe I'm crazy. Maybe I'm insane over here. I don't share any concern with the wide receiver group. I look at Frederick Moore. I look at Samaj Morgan. I look at Donovan McCulley. I look at guys like Kendrick Bell. I feel like they have a whole stable of wide receivers who are capable of making plays. To me, the biggest issue and why people are concerned about it is because the wide receivers didn't do shit last year. But the reason they didn't do shit was because the offensive play calling wasn't great and there wasn't a quarterback who could get the ball from point A to point B consistently. So I think absent of those two things, probably the position group that's going to suffer the most is the wide receiver group. But in terms of talent, I think that they've got enough guys who can be effective. And when you look at the way that Michigan plays its brand of football, which is mostly ground and pound, but we know that Chip Lindsey wants to open up the offense and get more out of the passing game. And I think that's why you bring in a Bryce Underwood. I think that's why you bring in a Mikey Keene. I think we will see that now with some experience and some talent at the quarterback position. So I don't share that concern with the wide receivers. Let's flip it over to the defensive side of the ball before we get out of here, as we are approaching an hour. Trent, when you look at this Michigan defense, you talked about it. There's a lot of experience in the secondary. There's a lot of experience everywhere on this team, even though they're losing 3 first-round draft picks. What's your biggest strength for the defense? What's the biggest concern?
Biggest strength, I would have to go with the defensive line. You get back Rayshon Benny, you get back Derek Moore, you get back TJ Guy, you add Damon Payne, you add Trey Williams, who both, they might not have been elite at either school, but they were good. They're solid. They're veterans. And you got a bunch of young guys too. Cameron Brandt, Trey Pierce, Dom Nichols. Like, they've all shown flashes of what they can do. I think that defensive line is going to be nasty once again this year. I just think they're going to be really, really good. And then my biggest concern, we touched on a little bit, but not the safeties, not the secondary because of the safeties. I think it's going to be the cornerbacks position. You lose Will Johnson, who didn't play for half the season, but you still lose him. You lose Amir Hall, who is also a steady veteran. You do get back Zeke Berry, played awesome when they moved him to outside. Jair Hill, you get him back, but he had some issues last year. Outside of those two, like, you don't know what you really have. Josiah Edmonds, he was a freshman last year. He's back. You hope that Shamari Earls shows something. Jaden McBurrows, he's back. He's back.
We talked about this. Jaden McBurrows back for his 10th year of college football, by the way, like a veteran, if nothing else.
Yep. Yeah. And which he was Mike Sainristil's backup 2 years ago, and when he had his opportunities at nickel, he performed. Just staying healthy has been an issue for McBurrows, but you do have him back. You just don't have a whole. I don't feel like the depth is as good, as deep at corner as what you have like at safety. So maybe Michigan has like 10 safeties that it could play if it wanted to. So maybe you move some of those guys to corner to see what they can do. But for me, defensive line, strength, cornerback is your weakness.
Yeah, and I don't want to agree with you on every single point, but I feel like I'm going to have to. Like, I look at defensive line, strong. I look at the linebacker group, strong. I look at the safety, strong. Like, to me, it goes to corner when I'm looking at concern, and it's for all those reasons. Like, I get that Will Johnson didn't play for a portion of the season last year, but anytime you lose a guy like that, you're losing somebody who, you know, for a fact we've got a guy over there, right? And then you talk about Jair Hill, who I think a lot of us are going to pencil him into a potential starting role. We know Zeke Berry is going to move inside and outside at corner as well. Wink Martindale talked about that. And so there's some guys there who have experience, but to your point, Jair Hill down the stretch of the season, like, we didn't really see him all that much. Like, he struggled early in the year, right? Was getting burned a lot. And then we saw him start to make some plays. And then toward the end of the season, all of a sudden it's like, where's Jair Hill? We're not seeing him much. And now there's a number change there. He's wearing number 35. I don't even recognize him out there. So I think Jair Hill is still a question mark, but I think he's going to be a guy that's in the mix as well. We talked about Shamari Earl, the true freshman wearing number 2. Wink Martindale's talked about him. Sharon Moore's talked about him. Still difficult to start as a true freshman at the corner position in college football. So that's something that we're going to have to pay attention to. But I think you're right. Like, safety wise, they're good. And we talked about this before we went live. They've got so many damn safeties. Do they have some guys starting to work at corner out of that group because they have an abundance of safeties? A lot of those guys they got from the transfer portal as well. That's going to be something we have to see. But I agree, Trent. That's probably the biggest concern on this defense. But like I said, man, linebacker, they seem solid. On the defensive line, incredibly solid. And I think that's probably where the biggest strength comes from. I saw somebody, I think it was it Tim? Yeah, Tim from the YouTube page. He says his biggest concern is the defensive line. I don't have that. And look, I get, you lose Mason Graham and Kenneth Grant. Those are 2 big losses. Those are first round guys. You're going to feel those losses, no doubt about it. But you got Rayshon Benny in the mix. To Trent's point, you've got Trey Williams. You've got Damon Payne. Not superstars at Alabama and Clemson, but dude, Sharon Moore says those guys have assimilated well. They're doing very well, at least early on in the spring practice. I think those 2 guys are going to be big-time contributors. And then at the edge position, you got TJ Guy back, who's a veteran, who Sharon Moore says is, not just taking care of his body, but now he's assumed the leadership role on this defense, which is what you want to see out of a guy like that. And Derek Moore, who's played a lot of football down the stretch, he looked really, really good. I think Derek Moore can be an absolute animal in 2025. And so when I look at this Michigan defensive line at every single level, defensive line, linebacker, secondary, I think that they look strong. It's really just that corner position that we're going to have to see play out. And we probably won't know until we get into fall camp. So a lot of speculation here as we sit at the end of March. It's still kind of basketball season, which is nice because primarily, Trent, we're always thinking about football. Yeah. Dusty May's Michigan Wolverines are giving us something to think about with the basketball team. And we'll all be tuned in. Trent, he'll be sleepy. He'll be, blinking heavily. But Friday, 9:39 p.m. Eastern in Atlanta, it's Michigan, number 5 seed versus Auburn, number 1 seed, for a chance to go to the Elite Eight and possibly have a rematch with Michigan State. That's where we're going to end it right here. We appreciate it. Look, I would like to play some outro music. We always did outro music during last season for the show. My soundboard is absolutely busted. We found that out on last week's show when I was interacting with drops that I was dropping here, and nobody in the comments could hear it. So it was just me hearing sounds myself, and everybody was like, what the hell are you doing? That was just an absolute disaster of a show. I think today may have been a little bit better, but dude, we are crusty, musty, and dusty. We got to get our reps back. We're going to have to keep doing a show once a week so that we're good come fall. And I appreciate anybody who dropped in here, took part in it. We'll watch the basketball team, see what they do there. By the time we get on Wednesday, I mean, would the Elite Eight be played by Wednesday? I don't have the dates in front.
Yeah, so like if Michigan wins Friday, they'll play Sunday.
They'll play Sunday. So hopefully the next time we get back on here, we're talking about the Elite Eight, a big Michigan victory over number 1 Auburn, and then obviously a victory over the Michigan State Spartans, right? To go to the Final Four. Yeah, plenty of things that are going to happen between now and then. But again, we appreciate you all for dropping in, listening to a couple knuckleheads for an hour. We will see you on Wednesday. Take care.